Fox News alert millions of American families.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest.
Here at St. John's Basketball March.
There are certainly a lot of efforts here at the LAPD.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest in the coronavirus pandemic. Number of cases here in the U.S.
And here we are, Rise to Liberty Live, and I'm joined by Adam Feller of, there goes notifications already. Adam Feller of the Davis County Libertarian Party. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. You know, it's been a busy day. A bunch of tech issues at work. You know, it's always great always working fun. Remote.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the new world we live in, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I would almost rather be out dealing with some of the other crazies in the world than dealing with all this tech issues and then getting blamed for it.
Right. I work in IT, so you know, a lot of times it's a lot of IT guys kind of, you know, you kind of want to deal with the machines instead of the people.
No.
But I gotta say, I kind of miss dealing with the people, so I'm looking forward to getting back to normal.
Well, at this point, what is normal?
Who knows?
You know, these past couple of years, 2.5 years, is just, I don't know, destroyed any sense of normalcy, in my opinion.
Yeah, our civilization has definitely been rocked to its core.
Yeah,
you know, and who would have seen it coming? It's been wild. Some things I never thought I would see. They're just kind of happening every day now.
Yeah, and it's just normal. Everyone's just supposed to deal with it like it's just nothing, you know?
Right. I feel like I want everything to go back to normal, but you know, in the meantime, it's like, you know, I feel like I need to mourn what we've lost, you know, in case we never get it back. I really hope, and I think we will get it back. I think people are turning a corner. I think things are looking up. I think people have had enough of the BS, and I mean, I think there's still stragglers who are going to want to hold on because I think they found something of an identity. Over the last 2 years, and that's their new persona, and they want to hold on to it. But I just don't think that most of us are going to go along with it for much longer.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. It was pointed out to me that a lot of people typically feel somewhat helpless in their lives. And then as soon as this like mask thing, social distancing came around, it gave everybody a taste of power, and nobody handled it well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's the illusion of control, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, it's been, you know, we strive for control in our lives, and that's understandable. I mean, you know, life's a roller coaster, and you want something you can grasp onto. And I think, you know, with the masks and the vaccines and all the mandates, and you know, I can tell you how to live, and it just shows how good a person I am. I think that really, again, that gave people that illusion, and in a time of such fear, which, you know, the virus did scare, you know, it scared a lot of people, and it's been a big thing, and not only fear of the virus itself, but fear of the government response to it. And so there's been a lot of fear, and whenever there's a lot of fear, people grasp for control, and I think that's what a lot of people have been holding on to, and some people still are you know, stubbornly holding on to it.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone fell for this whole thing at a certain point.
Sure.
I think it was pretty reasonable, especially when, I mean, information's hard to come by anyways, but then when everything's so crazy and new and nobody knows what's going on,
Right.
like it just seemed so wild. But it kind of seemed like the longer it went on, it seemed more and more apparent that this wasn't about health and safety. It was
Exactly.
definitely more control.
Exactly.
And I mean, now we see things like anything going on in Canada, Australia, and it's like, no. Those aren't concentration camps. They're wellness centers.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's very Orwellian, the terms that we apply to these things, that you look at them and we can see what they are. We can see
Yeah.
what they are. And I mean, we're not stupid, and we're not completely ignorant of history. We can see the parallels. And yeah, do I think that Australia is exactly like Nazi Germany? No, I don't think that. But man, uh, I see things going that way, and I don't like it. And I think it's up to us, to people who are liberty minded, to really speak out and be the canary in the coal mine and say, look, we're not going down the right path, and we need to turn back.
Well, and what was so concerning to me, just out of the gate, was how willing everyone was to just give up their liberty, just without question. And it got to the point, and is even still at the point with some people, to where, I mean, you mentioned liberty or freedom or anything, you say the word honk honk, and all of a sudden you're a white supremacist.
Right. Yeah. I was seeing something. I didn't read it all. I usually try to get the gist of what I'm reading whenever it's something coming from the woke left. And it was something to the effect of, like, the term liberty is now wrapped up in white supremacy. And it's like, what?
Of course.
I'm sure that if you went back to like 1865 and asked, the newly released slaves, if that's what they thought, I doubt that would be what they thought.
Yeah.
Liberty is something precious. It's something that is the birthright of every human being, and we're not going to shy away from embracing it and saying that it's our number one value. It's the thing that sets us apart. It allows us to prosper. It allows us to cooperate and achieve great things. It allows us to resolve our differences peacefully. It's just it's the most beautiful philosophy in the history of the planet, and we're not going to give it up, no matter how many unpopular labels you slap on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I view it as the most important virtue. There's another side to liberty that most people don't talk about, and that's the ability to fail. And it's
right.
It seems cold-hearted on the surface, it's a dog eat dog world or whatever, and it's like, that's not inherent necessarily. So if you choose to look at it that way, I'm kind of more curious about why you're looking at things so negatively.
Right.
But the ability to fail is almost synonymous with liberty in itself.
Right. And liberty is not some kind of utopia, magic world where it's all unicorns and rainbows. That's not what liberty is going to be about. People are going to fail whenever you're in a free society. And that's a good thing, because we learn more from failures than we do from successes. I think about all the failures I've had in my life. I've learned a lot more than the times that I've, succeeded or, achieved things. So I think that's the way we as a society and we as individuals get better. We do things wrong. We learn, okay, that doesn't work. How can we do it better? And we figure it out.
Well, and that brings me to one of my most loved and hated words of all time, and that's fair.
Oh,
I think fair is just such a lie to everything.
yeah.
And it's I think it's really interesting watching kids use the word fair.
Oh, sure.
And how they apply it to things. And it's like, well, maybe that might work in a kindergarten class or, early elementary school, but for the most part, there's no such thing as fair.
I can tell you as a father of 3 boys, they don't really use the "that's not fair" argument anymore because I just shut it down. I'm like, they're like, "That's not fair." Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's life. And, I think whenever we talk about things like fairness or equality, I think to the extent that we have a state, and I think like you, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I want to uh, pare the government down, really to non-existence. But to the extent that we have a government, um, while we still have one, yes, equal treatment and fair treatment under the law, yeah, that's something that we should strive for. But in terms of like the marketplace and real life in the private sector and in our personal lives, yeah, fair is just something. It's a myth. It's something that like you said, children believe in.
No.
It's a fairy tale.
Well, I mean, Santa's more believable,
Sure.
brings me a lot more joy at this point in my life than
Right.
the word fair.
Right.
I do find it kind of interesting though, because it's such a focal point of what people call leftists. I do think calling them the left is a little disingenuous. I think there are still left-leaning people out there that actually do, enjoy their country, want to see people helped, but don't want to burn everything down to the ground to be able to get it, to make everyone equally poor and miserable.
Yeah, I think we saw that over the last 2 years. I was amazed myself, just the people that I started following and I was agreeing with on Twitter, and I would look at them and I'd be like, I remember you from a year ago, and I never would have thought that we'd be on the same page about anything. But no, there's some very principled leftists out there who, uh, yeah, they're on the right side of the most important issue of our day,
No.
which is the authoritarian takeover of our civilization. And I've often said it's like this realignment, and I think you saw that in the election of 2020, where you had basically all the bad guys kind of line up
Yeah.
behind Biden. It was all of a sudden the military establishment, the big business, the banking cartels, that they all, all of the old power institutions and big tech, new power institutions, they all lined up. Everyone who wields that kind of social political power, they all kind of lined up on one side. And throughout this pandemic, we've seen kind of that on the other side too, where libertarians and constitutional freedom-minded conservatives and liberals have kind of come together, and we realize, yeah, there's going to be some, once we get through all this, there's still going to be some pretty big disagreements when it comes to economy and justice and things like that. But on the biggest issue of the day that we're facing right now, like I said, I think we've seen this huge realignment, and it's something of a white pill for me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Ultimately, I think I'm white pilled on most everything. I mean, you see uprisings all over the world, and this isn't just like a Occupy Wall Street either. They're like, this is not going away.
Right.
And I mean, the trucking convoy is now starting here in the States, which I find interesting. The National Guard is supposedly supposed to meet them in Washington, where they built a wall around the White House. but walls are racist and don't work.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's surely the symbol of a free society, right? Where the king's palace is surrounded by a wall to keep the peasants out. That's
and men with guns guarding the border.
right. Yeah, that's exactly what I think of when I think of a free country.
Yeah. So I have this idea because in general, I do believe that most everyone maybe doesn't deserve respect, but should have the ability to earn respect. But I've met many people that are just so wrapped up in the narrative or just talking points. I just don't see any hope saving them, and I've taken to the liking of mocking them and just pointing out hypocrisy and hoping that somebody who's like on the fence will see it and just be like, you know what? Yeah, he's kind of right about that. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, I guess I kind of think that respect can come on multiple levels, and I think that I'm going to show respect to everyone, right? There's a certain modicum of respect I'm going to show to everyone right out of the gate. I'm not going to just, oh, you disagree me, so you're just this dumbass, and I think you're stupid, and I'm just not going to respect you. I think you can lose respect real quick, and people who are so wrapped up in that narrative and just their minds are just closed off. They're going to lose my respect really quickly, and then of course I'll have greater respect for those people who do something, who achieve something or do something that's really out of the normal and that really impressed me. I'll have more respect. So I think respect can exist on kind of a gradient and different levels. But yeah, people who are just wrapped up in the whole narrative and how you treat them, that it becomes this whole different thing. I know as far as me, like how you treat people who are in your family, because I have relatives who are totally wrapped up in this whole thing. And it's kind of like, I'm not gonna convince them, they're not gonna convince me, but I still value the relationship. And so it's not like I'm just gonna like deep six things and just and write them off. They're still family, they're still friends, I still love them, I still want the best for them. And so navigating that is particularly tricky. And then but with like people you just bump into in the Twitterverse or wherever, I'm kind of like you. I think it just becomes like a mocking thing, and I'm just I take this position of like, yeah, well, you should keep triple masking and stay in your house and don't come out until it's all over. Don't come out until there's not a single until there's a single until we have zero COVID. Don't ever come out. Just don't show your face.
Exactly.
And I think we'll all get along just fine if you do that.
We'll let you know when it's safe to come out. Yeah,
just stay in there. It'll be fine.
And there's some part of me that like, I don't know if pity is the right word, because in this day and age, ignorance is a choice. And
it is.
So part of me does feel bad, because I can only imagine how terrible of an existence that must be, to just constantly be scared.
Yeah.
Also, and from the outside looking in, thinking that everything the government does is good, or that they support you and actually care about you. And it's like, did anyone forget about how Dr. Fauci killed a bunch of gay people with experimental drugs in the 80s?
Right.
And this is the guy we're supposed to listen to? Like, where's the LGBTQ community, pushing back on him about that?
Right. Exactly. I mean, the guy's a mad scientist, and he's lost any credibility that I thought. Before, at the very beginning, sure, I was like, well, this guy seems like he's the expert, so I guess we ought to listen to what he has to say. But over time, it's just kind of like, how many times can he go back on his story or be proven not just wrong, but just like willingly lying? And for folks that are that are still just, Fauciists. I'm like, how much evidence has to be piled up before you start to think, well, maybe he's not, maybe he's not Saint Anthony. Maybe
Yeah.
he's actually a piece of shit.
Yeah. Maybe I should get rid of my Fauci ouchie pouchy carrying my Vax card and
Right.
Open my eyes a little bit, crawl out of the cave.
Right. I look at the cult of personality around him and I'm like, it's like something I would like make up, like if I was doing like a reducto ad absurdum just to kind of say, oh, but I can't go anywhere with it because it's already so ridiculous. I can't make it more ridiculous than it is when I want to mock them. They've already gone there.
Yeah, exactly. Which I do think brings an interesting spin on our society. Specifically, what I mean is that comedy, I think, has always had a special place in fighting against certain narratives and exposing certain truths that maybe we don't realize or we don't want to talk about. And you look at publications like the Babylon Bee,
Yeah,
and they're almost just predicting things at this point.
Right.
And it's like, how ridiculous can you get to where somebody could be like, oh no, that couldn't happen.
Right. Yeah. And you can see, you can see why it's under attack. If you're I used to hate the word cathedral, but I think it's such a perfect description of what we're facing. And if you're sitting in the cathedral, if you're one of the the dark overlords that's sitting in one of the towers, you can see why comedy is such a threat, because it undermines your power. With just one quick punchline, it just undermines your power, and people don't take you seriously. And all of a sudden, you're the object of ridicule and mockery. And so you can see why, especially comedians, have been so targeted in this new environment. And it's a shame too, because I've always been a stand-up comic fan. I've always been really entertained, and I like edgy humor, but that's the kind of stuff that's really under the microscope now, and this cancel culture is just, it's out of control.
It really is. Them being the cathedral, the powers that be, whatever you call them, Klaus Schwab and his little goons, once you see that side attacking themselves, such as, going after Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan's, left leaning centrist, and no way is he a white supremacist, racist, all these terrible things they've been trying to sling at him. And it's interesting watching, the snake eat its own tail.
Yeah, it's these are people. If the left would just listen to Joe Rogan, and listen to Joe Rogan the way he was, pre-pandemic, especially, it just goes to kind of, he's one of the, he was one of them. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that realignment of, Joe Rogan, for the most, he believes in a welfare state. He believes in a lot, he wants, healthcare for all, government healthcare for all. He's espoused those things. He talks about how he was going to vote for Bernie. And so he's definitely, left center, but he doesn't toe the line. He is pro Second Amendment. He does support gun rights. He is more liberty minded when it comes to a lot of things. And when it came to COVID, he was on the wrong side of their line for that. And those are like really almost anything is an unforgivable sin when we've gotten so polarized. And You know, and you step out of line and you're not part of the club anymore.
Yeah.
You must. It's just. I remember there was a. I don't remember who put out the list, but it was like this list of supposedly right wingers, and there, you know, Joe Rogan was on it. I'm trying to remember who it was. Eric Weinstein, I think, was on it.
Oh
And
wow.
it's like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
You know, it's you know what makes somebody right wing? They're against the COVID regime, and that's
Yeah.
it. Well, all right, I guess.
That's a pretty low bar.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
I had seen a one of these political diagrams, and it was on a Reddit, and once again, I don't know if it was supposed to be satire, if it was, you know, not ironic, then I wouldn't be surprised, but it had Karl Marx, Lenin, and Stalin as centrist,
Wow.
and anything right of them was far right.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
That
I
something.
I had friends who, like, you know, they would call themselves center left, and this is even pre-pandemic. This is going back, you know, multiple years, and it seemed like every year they would still call themselves, I'm in the center. I'm in the center. You know, I'm a centrist.
Yeah.
I'm a moderate. And I would ask them, can you name me one thing that you disagree with about the Democratic Party? Can you name one Democrat who, you know, you have a problem with? And, you know, of course they'd point to people like Manchin. I guess back then it was like Lieberman or you know, someone like that. They would say, yeah, you know, that. But I'm like, okay, just like take the Democratic plank of you know, their platform, and just, is there any one thing that you disagree with? And of course there wasn't. And I was like, okay, but you're a centrist, huh?
Yeah.
Right. The center's just you know, the center's just gliding, you know, further and further left.
Yeah, it's that Overton window, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
I just find it kind of interesting because the boogeyman right now is the extreme right. And it's like I am unaware of a massive uprising of extreme right since the 40s. So I mean, there was also extreme left at that time too. You know, look at Mussolini.
Sure.
I don't see a mass uprising of extreme right. There's like what 10 Klansmen left in the country,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and their numbers are dwindling every year, and
And they
somehow,
hide.
yeah,
They hide. They don't come
yeah,
out. They don't do marches anymore.
no,
They hide. They can't tell people. And if you think about it, they've always had to hide. They've always had to wear the stupid masks because they know if people knew who they were, they'd be ostracized out of decent society.
you
And
think that would tip them off?
right, right. I mean, if you have to hide the way you believe, then obviously your beliefs are not part of the overall culture, right?
Yeah,
We're not a racist society because racists have to hide who they are, because if they get found out, they're canceled and they lose their job. They, you know, there's hell to
could
pay.
lose their family, lose friends.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And rightly so. Right. You know,
Yeah.
it's I'm glad it's that way. But you know, to be so tone deaf as to say, oh no, it's, you know, it's still just all white supremacy and we have a racist culture, and you know, America is just so terrible because we're so racist. I don't know. A lot of times I think people who say that, I don't know if they've gone to other countries. Because I mean, you can find, you go to China, you go to some other places, and you can find a lot deeper or more prevalent racism. And this isn't to say that there aren't individual racists out there. Obviously there are. Obviously there are. But as far as like a systemic, like it's It's just, everybody, just a majority of people feel this way. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Yeah. So of course, over the past 2 years, especially since I have been a part of Clubhouse, I have met more racist people on Clubhouse than almost anywhere. It's really interesting. I would say a majority, at least through my experience, were not white racist people. So,
really?
yeah, I've been called a lot of really terrible things just because of the color of my skin. Of course, I'm not a snowflake, so it's like, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
sure.
the term. This is another word that I find interesting is calling somebody a racist. It's like, if you are racist, you're not going to care. You're going to say, yeah, so.
Right. Yeah.
So I do find it kind of interesting as a weapon, words as weapons.
Right.
And that happens so much. That was actually one of the first things I talked about on my podcast was, language, and it shapes everything. The people always want to say, oh, you're just arguing semantics. And it's like, but semantics is everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we distinguish one thing from another. So it's actually really important we use words correctly. I do view that as one of the biggest hurdles we have currently is the abuse and manipulation of language. And it's manifesting physically into the world now. And it's a really ugly world because of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, words have to have meaning. Otherwise, it's just absolute chaos and just random. I mean, not anarchy, because I want anarchy, but it's just chaos. If words don't have meaning, or if the meaning of words just change based on what fits the narrative, people who value freedom of speech and people who value their freedom are now terrorists.
Yeah.
Right. And the word terrorist has come to be redefined. And that's one of the things, you say you're white pilled about a lot of things. That's one of the things that really, for me, that's one of the biggest black pills, is just how language has been hijacked, and just it's like 1984, and how many people go along with it, and it just seems to, that's the biggest disappointment to me. Is just, like you were saying earlier, how many people just gave up their freedom, how many people just roll over and accept these new definitions. That's one of the things that just really bums me out.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting too, because it's certain communities, and not just the communities, but specific provocateurs within the communities. I see it on the right, the left. I see it all over the place. There's bad actors on all sides. So I had actually had that interview with Ryan, or Lady MAGA, and of course he had a very interesting perspective. He's a gay drag artist, and because he supported Trump, he was kicked out of the community.
Wow.
Which seems so strange to me.
Yeah.
Like that's all that is required to be a part of the LGBT community, is just, you got to hate Trump. Like, I got to grow your ranks somehow, I guess, but
yeah, I guess. Well, and it's, it's like we were talking about, when things become this polarized, you step an inch out of line, well, you're not part of the club anymore. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. That's a real shame. But what can we do? That's the big question, right? Is how do we combat this?
So, and I actually have a couple of theories about this. One of my other big white pills is I recognize the powers that be currently, the mainstream culture masquerading as counterculture, because can't be both. So,
Right.
um, I recognize this system as designed to fail. There's no way that this could go on forever. Well, and I will backtrack on that just a little bit, because there are certain people out there in high level positions making some decisions that affect everybody.
Sure.
And if they had their way, it probably could last forever. You will own nothing and be happy about it.
Right. Yeah.
So it could. I don't know. I just see too many people not taking it, though. It's just the vast majority of people are just not taking it. Yeah. And so since we have convention season coming up and everything, of course, I've been doing research on voting demographics and looking at different ways to run campaigns and promote it to people. And here in Weber County, I thought it was interesting because the two largest voter demographics in Weber County are Republicans and independents.
I can buy that.
Yeah. I thought it was so interesting, and they're only a sliver away from each other. Independents are just a smidge smaller. Yeah. So it's interesting. Most everyone is still just average, Yeah. So you see things like, I don't know, some of these teachers segregating their students in school, which I'm sure you guys are ecstatic that you homeschool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the best decision we've ever made. I mean, it's between all the CRT BS and all the the back and forth with the masking, with the closing down, the remote learning. I mean, that's been a real blessing for us, is that we'd already been homeschooling for, gosh, I want to say like 5 years. And so we just kept going. I mean, there were fewer trips to the museum, obviously, and things like that. So that was a bit of a bummer, but I know last school year, we were probably out more than any previous year. We have our kids were going to this arts academy. They were doing science club. They do this ninja warrior gym that they go to. They were just out so much more than really any other year that we had, and they were interacting with other kids so much more than they had before, and it was great. It was great, but it was interesting to juxtapose that at the same time that so many other families, they were just going through the most isolated school year that they'd ever gone through, and it was terrible because there's an adjustment you have to make, and the public school system did not handle it well. They weren't able to navigate that successfully, which isn't a surprise, because
government program failing.
Well, yeah, there's that, but then just when you say systems designed to fail, one size fits all. I mean, when everything is centered around, going back to what you said earlier, fairness and equality, and making sure that every child is given the same instruction, is given the same, has the same curriculum, everything like that.
No child left behind.
Yeah, right. No child left behind. I mean, I've made this analogy several times, is imagine a shirt store. Imagine a company that makes t-shirts and only makes medium-sized t-shirts. I mean, it's
Well, I'm out.
right. I'm definitely out. Most people are not going to be happy with that.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. That's what you get with the public school system. Except now, imagine that you don't have a choice to go shirtless. You have to buy that shirt.
And be happy.
Right. And more than that, you have to buy your children that shirt and be happy with it. Well, of course, people are gonna argue, and they're gonna be wrestling. They're gonna be, no, like, if we're only gonna have one size, then I want it to be a large. No, I want it to be a small. No, I want it to be 2XL. There's gonna be, everybody's gonna be vying for this control of this, one size fits all system, rather than, hey, you know what? Why don't we just let people choose what works best for them? Let them choose the size shirt that works best for them. My kids, I have 3 boys. Like I said, we're always told that they look like almost exactly like each other, that they're spitting images of each other, but they have very different learning styles, and we had to take very different approaches with how we instruct each one of them in different subjects, whether it be in history or math or all these different things. It's a different approach, and that's what that's been the great success of homeschooling, is that you can tailor make your child's education experience to your child and what works best for them, instead of putting them into this basically just a factory. I mean, that's what the current public school system is based off of. It's basically an assembly line factory where it's
and it kills all creativity. It kills all imagination and desire. I mean, I'm a product of public schooling, and I'll tell you, I had a terrible time. I've learned more outside of school than I ever did in school. I never got taught taxes. Actually, I did get taught how to balance a checkbook. Like, that really awesome. Does me much now, except for we actually do pay our rent with a check. So
there you go.
So that's interesting. But yeah, I can't look back on any of my schooling years and honestly think that any of it was worth it.
I went to a good high school. I mean, a good public high school that according to all the testing measurements and everything like that was above average. I can tell you, I hated math because the teachers that I had made it so boring. And it wasn't until I was going to community college over a summer, just to kind of get some basic credits out of the way. And I was taking college algebra, and the professor was so passionate about it and was able to frame it in such a way that it was like, oh, you know what? Math is actually fun. I actually found out I like math. And it was the same thing with history. History was such a slog when I was going through public school. I didn't learn how much I loved history until after I graduated college. It was something I discovered in my 30s that I was like, wow, I really enjoy reading and learning the lessons of the past and what mistakes and achievements that our civilization has gone through over the years, and how we've progressed, and the story of mankind. In public school, it was just, you got to memorize these names and dates so that you can pass the test.
Yeah, the state sanctioned piece of paper that says that you're employable, that you're a functioning person. That seems incredibly Orwellian to me.
Yes.
You can't function in society without your tax stamp. you know. It's just it's so strange to me.
Yeah, it is. It's but you know, I think that's one of the other white pills that's coming out of this, is that I think there are a lot of parents who were forced, you know, somewhat into homeschooling and dipping their toes in that water, and they realized it's not that bad. It's really not.
Well, you head down to Salt Lake County, I bet there'd be some parents down there that would argue.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I'm actually curious, you might be more versed in this than I am. What are some of the arguments against school choice? Because that seems to be a big issue here in Utah.
So the arguments against school choice are that if you introduce some kind of voucher program where, you know, you don't like the school that, you know, the parents don't like the school that their child is in, they want to send them to some other school, whether that be another public school, or that be a private school or a charter school, or wherever. If the funding is attached to the child, the argument is that schools that are already having problems and that parents are not happy with, they're going to lose their funding because parents are going to pull them out. And so that's the whole.
So it's an anti-free market argument.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's a we've got to support the monopoly, no matter what. I mean, it doesn't
Won't
matter
somebody please think of the children?
Right. Yeah.
This is like Helen Lovejoy.
Right. Right. And the thing with school choice, and I mean, ultimately, what I'd like to see is a completely privatized education system. I think that would improve quality and afford more opportunities, you know, all over the board. And what a free market, what a privatized education system would do, you know, there's the backlash is like, oh, the poor teachers, you know, what are they going to do? They're, you know, and you know, look, I have people in my family, I have people I have in-laws who are teachers, and they're great teachers. And the thing is that in privatized education market, great teachers are going to do really, really well.
And be paid very, very well
yeah.
for it.
I mean, there are one of the math curriculums that we use is called Math UC for our kids, and it, you know, it was started by a guy, and he's a math teacher, and he decided, you know what, I'm gonna make my math curriculum, and I'm gonna sell it, and the guy is making a whole lot of money, much more than he would ever make. And the thing is that he's benefiting more children because, you know, thousands of people are buying this curriculum. And so, you know, he's every year he's teaching way more than the 30, 25, 30, 40 kids that he could reach every year as a public school teacher. He's reaching thousands.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the teachers who are truly the best in their field are going to do great. They're going to be, you know, raking in the money.
Well, they're going to be sought after. Every parent's going to want the prestige of their child being taught by X teacher, you know?
Right. And you have the above, you know, a little above average to the average teachers. There's a place for them too, because you know, when these great teachers, you know, they record their lectures and they do all that kind of stuff, there is still a place for the one-on-one, the personal, you know, in-person instruction. And that is a role that those teachers can fill. And then there's the teachers who aren't very good at their jobs. And yeah, you're right. They'll have to move on and do something else.
Yeah.
Just like the horse buggy drivers had to find something else to do when the automobile took over. I'm sorry, that's the way things work.
Yeah.
And so,
but that's how we progress, you know.
Right. Those resources can then be reallocated to a more productive line of a more productive line of production, and they can put their energy and their time somewhere else that is more valuable.
Well, and that kind of lends to the necessity is the mother of all invention, right? So, I mean, we ended slavery, which is just strictly speaking from like a monetary economic standpoint is just a terrible model. Not to mention the moral implications. But as soon as that happened, there was a massive boom in the invention of farm equipment.
Right.
So it kind of segue into it's actually one of my favorite arguments to use against people. If you get a chance, definitely use it. It's I don't know, because that's always, you know, as libertarians or ANCAPs, anyone who doesn't flow into the duopoly, it's always like, well, what about this? What about this? And it's always nitpicky.
Right.
You have to have an answer for how everything's going to work in life. And it's like, I don't know. And I don't have to know.
Yeah, that's the trap, right? Is I need you, you know, if you're introducing something that breaks my paradigm, and so I want you to answer every single question. And the thing is, I think as libertarians, as anarcho-capitalists, as, you know, whatever, you know, people who are, as you said, arguing against the duopoly, we don't have to compare our solutions to some magical utopia. We just have to compare our solutions to what it is today. And quite frankly, in so many ways, what it is today, it's a low bar.
Yeah.
It's a low bar. I mean, when you talk about even things like law enforcement, well, how would a stateless society do law enforcement? You know, it'd be chaos, and there'd be crime all over the place, and
it'd be Chaz, but nationwide.
Right. How does that compare to what we have right now? You know, we have monopoly. Again, it's a government monopoly, which rewards failure, because, you know, in the free market, if you fail, you go out of business.
Yeah, and you don't get bailed out.
The resource, well, right, yeah, in a free market, right, an actual free market, you don't get bailed out. And the resources that are still valuable, they get picked up by someone else, and they get used in a more productive way. In the public sector, if you fail, well, that just means that you just didn't have enough funding. We need to fund it more. We need to throw more money at it.
Yeah, because that solves everything.
We've done that for 30 years, and the results still suck. Well, it's just because we're underfunded, and you must just hate X, Y, or Z. You must hate children, or you must hate whoever. You know, pick your victim demographic. You must hate them because you don't want to throw more money at it.
Yeah, I mean, we spend the most per student out of any country in the world, and yet we still have some of the unfavorably ranked education compared to so many other countries that do so much better with way less.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal opinion, so children have actually, especially as I've gotten older and just paid more attention, children of all ages really have proven to me that evil does exist in the world. And the reason why is because, first of all, anyone who attacks or uses children to further whatever agenda they have, whether it's, political, social, or whatever. It's like some of these teachers. I actually had a teacher like that. Didn't care about teaching. And it was just some sort of a sick game, you know?
Mhm.
And the reason why that translates to proving evil to me is the ability to actually and consciously do terrible things against children. It's just like the Department of Education has completely failed. It just funnels money. I had actually seen a screenshot or several screenshots of some local school board members in different counties here in Utah and how much they were getting paid.
Yeah.
Some of them six figures, and that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting. Somebody will take a paycheck and put that above the betterment of society through children.
Yeah.
They nurture them and love them, and uh, you know, put them into situations that they'll excel. Pretty much like
Right.
anyone, you know.
Yeah.
I'd actually, I'm getting ready to release an episode tomorrow. I'd actually interviewed Thomas Fellows. He
Oh.
he is the host and owner, I guess, of the Colorado Ped Patrol YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he took it upon himself to start, and I say this loosely, hunting down pedophiles,
Mhm.
exposing them.
Yeah.
We live in a world where a lot of police or just law enforcement agencies just turn a blind eye,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and it's just really interesting. I see a lot of just policy being made. Mask the children, keep them in these schools. Don't look at any actual abuse going on. Like it all seems very evil to me.
Yeah. Yeah. When children are political pawns, and I mean that's just the worst, and nothing really irritates me more. Um, I'm a good libertarian. I don't believe in the death penalty. Um, my one temptation, if you were to tell me, no, you have to have a death penalty for at least one crime, it would be child predators.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, just my personal convictions. I don't have any patience for them whatsoever. Yeah. So I agree. Just like using children, abusing children, um, not. It's just so self defeating. I mean, they're the future of our civilization, and in a it used to be that you had incentives to treat especially like your own children better, because they were the ones that would take care of you whenever you became too old and infirm to take
Yeah.
care of yourself. um, and of course and we're going to get a little too into my theories about how the state has destroyed a lot of the institutions that we should have. The state, of course, with Social Security and Medicare, um, it has
Oh, what a
supplanted.
failure.
What's that?
What a failure.
Right. But the whole idea, one of the ideas I think, is that it supplants that family institution, to where, yeah, um, I'm not going to be so dependent on my children, which sounds like a good thing, right? You don't want to be an
Burden them.
albatross. You don't want to burden your children, um, but it does alter the incentive structure a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think about also, like just our morality overall. I mean, one of the worst things you can do, one of the things that you'll be judged harshly on, is judging other people, is judging the actions of other people and saying, I condemn that. I think that is an evil thing. You get jumped on for being judgy.
Yeah.
People will judge you for judging. And my personal conviction is that a bedrock of our civilization is the ability of individuals to look at the actions of other people and say, yeah, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. And I don't want to be associated with that. And I think I don't want to have any part of that. And I think as the state has criminalized more and more things, I think what you see is that it's easier for people to just abdicate their moral, that moral sense of right and wrong, and just say, well, I'll let the state do it. It's easier for them to define what's right and wrong. And if it's bad enough, then it'll be illegal. And if it's not illegal, then it's probably fine.
Yeah. The claim that laws somehow equal morality. Right. That's insane. You can't legislate morality, you know?
Well, I think honestly, any law is legislating morality.
Yeah. Okay.
It is.
That's a fair statement.
If we have a law against stealing things, that's a moral statement. We're saying, no, you can't steal things in our society.
Yeah. Okay. So a collective moral statement.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I mean, if you whittle it down to that, just the things that we all pretty much agree on, the fact is that the criminal code would be like 2 pages long, right? It's don't commit violence against other people, don't steal things, and don't commit fraud.
Yeah.
And other than those 3 things, is there anything that needs to be outlawed that harms other people?
I wouldn't think so. And I've actually asked myself that question. I guess, there could be an argument made to it. At which extent does somebody's personal choices end up negatively affecting somebody else? And
right,
what comes to mind is like a family who's an addict of whatever kind.
Right.
Obviously, they're not outwardly trying to harm somebody, but try having a family member who's an addict and an addict of anything.
Right.
And it harms the family. So I think there could be an argument made maybe in either direction. I don't think that argument's ever going to be solved though. And
I think with addiction, I mean, I honestly think that addiction is a medical problem, and it's something that should be treated that way. I mean, we're not going to legislate our way out of people being addicted to things. Those are chemical or psychological, or people self-medicating. Those are things that really belong in a medical setting, not in a court of law.
Well, and also a family setting.
Right.
I find it interesting. So I'm a big proponent of family, the nuclear family. I'm not 100% sold that, it has to be a man and a woman. I do recognize scientifically the benefits of that. However, I do believe a loving home is a loving home.
Absolutely.
A child is better off in a loving gay family versus a neglectful and abusive straight family. So
100%.
but I do find it interesting that there's certain things like that, like family, that has tied civilization together for so long, and now these things are looked down upon. So, I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you, and I can tell you, within my generation, um, I know more people, more young females around my age that I went to school with, and just know from knowing kids that grew up to be what I would consider to be kind of degenerate. Um, look at OnlyFans. It's interesting. Do I inherently think that it's well? Okay, porn is a bad choice because yes, I do agree that it is inherently negative and it doesn't serve any purpose other than to cause harm. But that's my personal opinion.
Sure.
But I do just find it interesting why the sudden spike in this. Why is it viewed glamorously, whereas in 20 years ago it wasn't?
Right.
It brings up another one of my favorite words is normalize. We need to normalize these things.
Right.
No, we don't.
Right. No, we don't. There is a big difference between wanting something to be illegal and wanting to throw somebody into a cage with murderers and rapists.
Yeah.
For doing something that may be harmful to themselves and may indirectly harm other people, but and then also saying, well, that's not a prudent way to behave. That's not a prudent way to live your life. And there was something that Jeff Deist said one time that really struck me, because I'm a libertarian, and I if you want to live a certain way, as long as you're not hurting other people, do it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just don't want to subsidize it.
Yeah.
And he was making an interesting point that if social conservatives would take a second to think about it, libertarianism is actually their true calling.
Yeah.
Because it is all these things that all these different lifestyles and different things that like you're talking about, that the state either directly or indirectly subsidizes. If all those go away, then suddenly the incentives to live a more prudent or wise, to have to use more wisdom and prudence in your day-to-day life and the decisions you make about your life, all of a sudden those incentives are back. And if we know anything, is that people respond to incentives. Incentives work. And I think that's a lot of what the state has done, a lot of what the government has done, is just destroy incentives and set up perverse incentives.
Yeah. Well, the way I view it, it's kind of interesting. So government inherently is a system that ends up needing you more than you need it. And so it seems to me that we, well, probably since Lincoln, have been down this path in this country where the organization known as the government creates problems, so there's still a need for them.
Oh, sure.
It's I mean, if there's not fatherless homes, then how are we going to send out food stamps and universal basic income and free healthcare and all these other things, which if the family wasn't destroyed, or my favorite thing, one of the biggest missing puzzle pieces in our society that I think could actually save quite a bit is shame. It's just shame. It's some people need to be shamed. Right. That doesn't mean that you abusively shame people.
Sure.
But there's some things in life that are shameful and you should feel bad for doing them. And
Yeah.
just this like hippie free love, like everything's all right, you're perfect just the way you are thing is so detrimental.
Well,
And
it
it's
takes away
lazy.
from it takes away from like self-improvement. Like, you know, if you're perfect the way you are, then why strive to improve?
Yeah.
And I think we should all be striving to improve in different areas of our life all the time. That's, to me, that's kind of the point,
Yeah.
is to keep improving, keep, learn something new, uh, help somebody, uh, yeah, just improve. What you were saying, it kind of reminded me of this great meme I saw one time, and it was like, every life has a purpose. Sometimes that purpose is to be a cautionary tale for others.
Yeah.
It's I mean, that goes back to what I was saying. I mean, people who live unwisely and imprudently, a lot of times they get bailed out by the government, and so the effects are minimized. And so the lesson, the general deterrent that should come about if that person had faced the full consequences of their actions, that lesson doesn't really get learned um, at large. There's no mothers, cautioning their children, oh, don't be like Timmy down the way. You saw how he acted, and you see what has become of him. So don't be like him, and yeah. And it's not that I want Timmy to suffer. It's that, as a parent, I believe in natural consequences. And
yeah. Well, and to tell such a lie like that, especially to children, in my opinion, it seems incredibly insulting. You're taking away somebody's agency and you're influencing it. And maybe it ends up well. Most likely it's not going to.
Right.
And that's one of the most precious things we have is our ability to make our own choices.
Sure.
So one question, we'll get wrapping up here, but definitely something I wanted to ask you about was, so at least from my perspective, I definitely see a society in general at large that has largely become morally bankrupt. And well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that, morally bankrupt. One thing that drew me to libertarianism, especially when I was younger, was that the personal responsibility. So my question is since libertarianism basically is the with great power comes great responsibility aspect of life, how do we actually push that to sound attractive in this day and age?
That's a real tough one, because I think there are a considerable number of people who like the idea of, I can do what I want and nanny state's going to be here to take care of me, and I have that safety net no matter what I do. I do think that there are a lot of people, and I don't know if it's most, but I think there's a significant number of people who still value achievement and value making it on their own. And I think we need to encourage that. And I think the earlier we can, and this is kind of something, both being, county chairs, one thing that I want to try to really focus on is getting to high schools and getting into colleges.
Yes.
And like, if they have like a civics day, and just coming and say, this is what libertarianism is. And It's that, you need to, take care of yourself, and you need to, work your hardest, provide value for other people, be your best person. But with that comes freedom and independence, and there is no freedom without independence. If you're dependent on any entity, whether it be your parents or whether it be a state, you won't be free. And that freedom has a cost, and you have to have that responsibility. But if you have that responsibility, that's really what being an adult is all about. And so I think the earlier we can get in and push that message of freedom, because you look at kids today.
Don't get me started.
Well, and they're just in these institutions, and they're controlled. They're controlled and
largely lost, I would say, without purpose.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why people like Jordan Peterson have been so attractive to people, to young men in particular, but also young women, is that his message is just like, take responsibility for yourself.
Clean up your room.
Clean up your room. Be in control of your life.
Yeah.
Stop waiting for mommy to come around and do it for you. Just
do
it.
So one thing, I truly believe that the personal responsibility is actually very attractive. I think the challenge is showing people why.
Yeah,
and
it's a tough one.
Really, it only comes from experiencing it. I had worked on a farm for several years and got my hands dirty and was out in the sun a lot and sweated a lot, and it wasn't pleasant all the time. I had also grown up with a ranch in the family, and hard work was always the basis of everything.
Oh yeah.
So being exposed to that and actually doing something, there's just no better feeling. So I think it's just one of those situations, we need to shove people in that direction and have them experience it, and hopefully break out of the matrix from that. Realizing that being spoon-fed and ending up in a motorized wheelchair that takes care of everything in your life, that was funded by taxpayer money, is probably not the best way to go.
Right. And like you, I grew up. My grandfather had a farm. We were out there almost every weekend, whether it be baling hay, building fences, tending to livestock. It was a lot of hard work. I'll be honest, as a kid, I didn't like it. When my dad said, "Hey, we're going to work on the farm this weekend," I was like, just want to hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that work ethic that it instilled in me has served me greatly, and it made me appreciate accomplishment. And I think that sense of accomplishment and that sense of achievement, it's addicting.
It is.
If you get it, you feel good. You get that endorphin rush. It's just, it's great. And I think that's what a lot of kids need, is that feeling of achievement. They need to get addicted to that. That's what we should be trying to hook our kids on, is achievement and that feeling, because they're going to chase it. And the more they chase it, I think the better off we're going to be as a society.
I agree. I think it's interesting that obviously this is not a quick fix.
No.
It took us a long time to get to where we are now. The last 2 years aren't representative. That was just a slip down the mud.
Right.
sided hill.
Yeah.
So not representative, but in general, it took us a long time to get here. And I think it's going to take a long time to get back.
Yeah.
And it all starts in the home. Regardless of who you are, what you are, anything is, you build that strong family backbone, and you try your best. You don't give up. It's so, I don't know. It's just interesting because all of these easy outlets, like we can just do nothing. We can play on our phones, and you get a little bit older. Let's just do some drugs and drink on the weekend and just not have any responsibility at all.
Right.
And I mean, hop on TikTok for just 3-4 minutes, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm of a generation that TikTok just holds no appeal for me whatsoever.
Me too, luckily.
I think I've been on that. I think I've been on TikTok one time for work because I needed to check out the security ramifications of allowing it on our network.
No.
And that was the only time I was on it. I saw what it was all about, and I was like, "Yep, this is definitely my cue that I'm getting old. That they don't make these kind of things for me anymore."
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it looks like a train wreck.
I don't know. Might be a good marketing ploy for the LP though. So
it very well could.
If we could harness somebody who knew how to use the platform,
right,
then it could be very successful. So
right.
I would say you and I are probably the better ones at Twitter, as far as at least the more localized group of the LP here in Utah.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I'll admit I don't know the platform super well. But yeah, it's just really interesting. I had somebody propose to me the idea of just kind of playing dirty, in the sense is that we're going to have to use these weapons that were used against all of us.
Yeah.
And on that, I would like to say, I think the end goal, it really is decentralization.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the obviously ultimate decentralization is down to the individual level, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's coming in our lifetime. But as close to it as we can possibly get. Every modicum of governance should be, if it can't be at the individual level, then within the family. If it can't be within the family, then it should be within the neighborhood, or it should be within, your municipality. There should be very, very little that's left up to even state governments. And to the extent that there's a national government,
I mean, everything should be taken care of by the time it gets to that point. So there should just be no need.
Right. And
so
I consider myself what I would call a conservative anarchist. Like I don't think that we just turn off the light and just the state disappears one day and everything's better. I think that would be better than keeping it going forever.
Hashtag gridlock 2024.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'd rather see a gradual dissolution of the state where we're localizing and decentralizing and putting political power down to the lowest common denominator that we can. Because again, and that when you do that, it gives, for people who are big fans of democracy, it makes your vote much more powerful. Because if the power is in my city government, if the power to affect everyday life is in my city government, my vote counts more for city government than it does at the county or the state, and especially the national level, where my vote is
non-existent,
mathematically, like, just almost zero.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
yeah, the more we can decentralize, the more I think it's going to be healthy for democracy, for those people who really, really love their democracy. And I think the more it's going to, the better it's going to be for freedom and individual liberties.
so I think we'll end on this, but I did want to end on two of my last favorite words I wanted to mention: diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
Those are my and by love, I mean I hate these words. At least in the way that they have been weaponized.
Yeah.
So I'm actually a massive fan of diversity.
Me too.
The thing is about diversity, at least in the way that I see it, is that diversity happens naturally. It's just such as anarchy. It's the natural order of things.
Right.
And so, that kind of makes me question my my views of nationalism a little bit. Uh, I would find the world so boring if we were all the same and there were no borders.
Oh, sure.
So I'm actually not an open borders libertarian, and it's purely because of the cultural differences. Plain and simple. I don't necessarily think they should be enforced or guarded necessarily the way it's structured. I would like to see more of a local militia, watch, stand guard, kind of the responsibility that we should all have anyways.
Yeah.
But just the cultural differences alone is incredible to me. And I would actually like to be able to go somewhere and have it be different than where I'm from. And I don't see necessarily, of course, the lines are definitely fictional, but it's one of the most important fictional things that we have. I don't necessarily believe that it something to be conquested after, though. Like most war hawks or neocons, anything, pick your poison.
Right.
What's disturbing to me is the forced diversity. So that to me seems more sexist, more racist than anything else.
Right, because you're saying you have an ideal of what it should look like, and we need to make it look like that. And it doesn't mean like, let's talk about like the workplace. It doesn't mean we go get the best candidate for a particular position. We need to get someone who's going to make our picture look the way we think it should look.
Our Christmas card. It's
that's skin deep. I mean, it's so shallow. It's kind of disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
I probably differ from you a little bit on the border issue. I think open borders could be fine, but we have so many perverse incentives that are set up right now that we need to unwind first.
100% agree.
We got to get rid of the warfare state. We got to get rid of the welfare state. We got to get rid of the war on drugs, because those three things are the things that set up the bad incentives for illegal immigration or undocumented immigration, or however you want to put it. If the only incentive to come here is that you want to work and you want to provide value and you want to make a better life for your family, I'm all about it. Come on in. We need more of those people. And at that point, I've always made the joke, then we can start deporting people who are native to the United States, and rid of those people who are kind of, they don't want to do that. They don't want to provide value. They just want to kind of suck off the system. Those are the people that I don't have any, maybe those are the people who can go live somewhere else.
I'm actually honestly, at this point, I don't care if this violates the NAP, but I'm all for swapping Cubans for Antifa members. You know, that's where they want to live. We'll bring the Cubans here that want to live here.
I can see. I don't even know that it would be a NAP violation. I'm sure you can find a lot of consenting people on both sides. I'm sure you can find a lot of Cubans who want to come over here without having to, float on a tire across shark-infested waters. And I'm sure you can find lots of Antifa guys who think that Cuba is just going to be the shit, right?
Yeah,
so,
you just got to pry them out of their broken down car out of Portland.
right. They've set up their kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on that, I think we're going to wrap it up. That was a lot of great fun. Definitely going to have you on again, especially as I start doing more and more of these live streams.
Yeah, this was lots of fun.
Yeah,
I've never
definitely
done a live stream. This was a great first experience for me. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily here in Utah, we have a few people, including myself, trying this podcast thing. After listening to the people here, Reed Coverdale not included because he's leaving us. Yeah, sad Utah noises.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of really great people coming out of here that will add to this discussion, which will ultimately in turn help move the Overton window back.
Yeah.
And even just throwing this out to the matrix, it's one step closer. So
sure. Yeah. If we convince just one or two people and they convince one or two people, I mean, we start clawing our way back.
I mean, we're pretty familiar with brush fire here in Utah, so that's what we need to model ourselves after.
Let's be the spark.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Everyone watching, thanks for making it to this point. Go ahead and check us out at risetoliberty.com. Check out the merch at risetoliberty.store. And for anything way too spicy for any other platform, feel free to go over to risetoliberty.com/free speech and join the Telegram group. And until next time, stay free, my friends.